Talk and Power, your motorsport and motoring radio show. Now on 88.5 FM, The Valley Comes Alive. And podcasting across iTunes and talkandpower.com.au.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Talk and Power podcast. We're up to episode 86, and we have with us some big guests from all the way from Sydney, New South Wales. Tonight we are joined by Operation Radial Freedom Weekly, their Facebook show and Instagram show, the Jet 275 team. Welcome aboard, Sam and Vic. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You guys are like radial royalty.
I don't know about royalty. We're probably Australia's most wanted radial racers, but it's a big compliment. We're very passionate about it. We are.
I just, for starters, it's great to see a Commodore that doesn't have an LS in it.
Absolutely. Well, there's one with an RB30 and the other one's got a Chev. So
I know.
No LS with you, mate.
And Vic, I've got to tell you, the RB guys over here, they all hate your guts.
Mate, I love it, mate. I sleep great. That's a compliment, bro. That's
it. Just beat them up on a little 235 there. And,
I know.
Do what we've got to do.
No, it's great, man. It's great.
Thank you.
Well, look, before we get too in depth and a bit political tonight, well, let's start off with you guys. I mean, your cars. I think that's important to start off with. Sam, why don't you tell us a bit about your VS HSV club sport, the small block Chev, as you said, 400. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so the car was originally purchased because I said to Vic I wanted a supercharged car for my wedding. And so we supercharged that, and Vic got the duties of doing the biggest burnout in front of the Greek Church of Kingsford, and drove it to the wedding photos. And then from there it got pulled over a few times by the local constabulary. And I made the decision to turn it into a race car. And from there, we had a 355 that Vic had put together that ran, I think it was, what did it run? 950s at 144.
Mm.
And I was sitting in Subway, I'll never forget, at Mascot, just near the airport in Sydney. And Vic goes, you know, the next engine I'm going to get for you, you're going to run what you did at the quarter to half. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, don't stress. He goes, I've got a few things in the pipeline. So we sourced this Chevrolet from the US, and it had already run in a Chevelle over there. And after a little bit of shoehorning into the car, it's a VS Senator. We ended up going 767 at 184 after blood, sweat, and tears. With the involvement of Vic, obviously tuning, and JW Automotive, they're doing all of the suspension setup and the wiring and setting the car up on the radials. It still ran a set of 90-10 Pettis shocks at the front, unfortunately.
We didn't get to change it.
We didn't get to change that because, lo and behold, Vic said the same thing to me after I ran that pass. The next engine cost me a fair whack of money, but the next engine, the Vic Source, has gone 592 at 252 mile, and that's going to be twin turbo in the Chev. So let's see what it does. Small block as well, Chev. Yeah, so we're upgrading.
I like the look and the feel of the car. I mean, it's correct me if I'm wrong, still full steel body. You haven't gone.
Yeah. So full steel body. I'm getting rid of the big cowl hood, so it'll have just a nice little bump on the hood now. It'll be a factory-looking car from the outside, but mate, it's all race purpose now. Six Boost from Toowoomba has got his hands on it. Vic and Justin have got a Motec going into it with all the bells and whistles. So look, it's turned into a bit more of an investment for me, but it's a passion, obviously, as you know, that I have, and Vic's making sure I don't put an LS in it and anything bigger than 400 cubes.
I think you speak the same language as Simon, so that's
100%, boys, 100%, spot on.
Well, Simon, he reminds me that he's making how many horsepower per cube with his 3-litre RB30, and he's making me look stupid. So I'm going to keep it at 400 just for that purpose.
Plenty of steam, don't worry about that.
Hey Vic, while we got you there, then tell us a little bit about your VL as well. That's pretty famous Australia-wide. Your ride as well, Jet 30R. Tell us a little bit about what you've done on a 235 there. You've gone as quick as a 774 at 177, and 482 to the half track on a 235. That was at 148 mile an hour. So tell us a little bit about Jet 30R.
Yeah, look, the vehicle is not the original Jet 30R. I've had two cars that look virtually identical. The first one I sort of purchased in 07, come out of Victoria, did my own tasteful modifications to it. Car was running like 920s, got it down to about 870s. This is back in 2010. And then I had a little bit of time off where I was doing a lot of R&D with the engine work with the mob down there. Having said that, another VL Calais come up for sale. This one here looked a little bit prettier. And I just said, well, you know, maybe I'll just keep it sort of street race sort of thing. Basically not having 4 glass windows, one passenger seat, driver's seat, and just putting the revised engine combination into this car, which was a little bit lighter. The car itself, we debuted it and it was running around about the 840 mark. We started playing around with a few EFI systems and stuff, and I said, look, I don't have the data capacity that I need. I spoke to my buddy Justin up at JW Automotive. I said, look, dude, I need to put an ECU in the car that's going to give me a lot more data for what I'm going to need and where I'm going to need to be in the future, you know. He said, yeah, no dramas. So we got everything out of the car, and basically I went up there for about a week and we put a Link EFI system in the car, sort of a bit of a tune-up in it. Come back to Sydney, started playing. All of a sudden, you know, the car's sort of going like, you know, 820s, 81s, and we're just sort of just having a bit of a feel, getting all our data. All of a sudden, I go to him, listen, dude, at the time I had a 255 radial on the car. I said, look, I want to put a 235 on there. He said, look, it's a bit of an ask, but we'll do it. I know Justin's very competent with sort of the tune side and the suspension. And obviously the tune side is not just the actual suspension, it's obviously the front, the rear, converter, 2 steps. The whole tune-up setup of the car, and I said, look, you know, the power's the power. We've got good power, but we just need to get it to leave and see if we can try run like, you know, maybe a 799 on the radial. Anyway, went up there a couple of times to Queensland, come back to Sydney. This was happening over a period of 6 months. Every 2-3 weeks, we're just basically, you know, towing up and down and testing. We started chasing the car on the 235 radial. I believe we were the first to run 520s over the 8th. We were the first to go in the teens, first to run a 0. On the pass where it ran 5001, it ran the 770, 477. We were pretty ecstatic after about 6 months. And I said, look, man, you know, to run 5001, I said, man, we've got to go 499. So I rang up Paul Moyt, another good buddy of mine, on the way back from Brisbane at one of the test meetings. I said, Paul, when's the next test meeting coming up, man? He goes, Vic, we've got a private coming up in 2 weeks. There'll be 4 door slammers and a VL. I said, mate, book me in. So rocked up to Sydney Dragway on a Thursday night. And you had the 4 door slammers, and I was just pitted down the back. They knew it was me because they could smell the Slovakia going in the lamb backstrap. You know, I had my crew guys just cranking out the lamb, you know.
We had the open trailer. They had the closed semi-trailers.
So anyway, we get to the start line, and we built the first pass out. Mind you, it had been the 3rd converter change in 3 meetings that we'd been to. The car belts out a 502 at 143.5, which was the PB speed. I'm like, okay, we're on it. Justin makes a little bit of a tweak. We go back out. It runs a 501 at 143.5 again. I said, geez, man, you know, are we going to run it? The 3rd pass, you know, we come back round. Justin goes, just, you know, sit in the car. He goes, pulls the track. He goes, look, it's got a bit more. I said, we'll try to get a bit more out of the 60. Lo and behold, we let go of a button, bang, from a 119 60 foot. The car goes a 1187. Go through the car, like just absolutely ball terror, goes 4990 at 143.88. And, you know, to go through the finish line and just see that in the car was, you know, pretty emotional, you know, like it had been 6-7 months of constant chasing. And with a good 3-4 boys around me, we got the job done, and we were the first to run the 4s as well with the tyre. Not, you know, take nothing away from a couple of guys that were chasing us, but we got it done. And yeah, man, I tell you what, man, it was, it took a lot to actually get it, but yeah, it was very humbling, if that's the right word to do it, you know.
Certainly. So I guess with that in mind, the passion. We'll talk about radial racing a little bit later as well, and your passion in radial racing. But moving on from there, I guess I watch your show, and while we're here, we're talking about it. Just give the show a bit of a plug as well while you can. So it's the show's called Operation Radial Freedom, and it's run by yourselves. I like to call you call yourselves WOGs. I like to call you the well-organised Greeks.
Yeah,
That's a polite way to put it.
I mentioned that several times last episode.
You did. And look, I mean, to be honest with you, I watched a bit of it live, but then I went back and watched it all last night because I felt it was important to do the interview that we're going to do tonight justice. So before we get stuck into that, there's just one thing I really want to touch on before we kick off any further. Peter, the seller of that Tirana that we saw on the episode, how is that sale going? How is that travelling at the moment?
I think he's had a couple of
calls. Look, I think he's had a number of inquiries there. He's been uncontactable. Obviously, the guy's been with doctors, and I think he could be in a hospital. So I believe a good friend of his was going to reach out to Cristiano of Australian Muscle Car Sales regarding that, and just see what they can do, because obviously the point of contact's a little bit difficult with his case. But, fingers crossed he can sort of optimise his sale and do the best thing he can for himself and obviously for his family,
If any of your viewers are watching and it hasn't been sold by the time this goes to air, please get them to jump onto the Jet275 page, just have a look at the car. They don't even have to click the episode, but they'll see the beautiful purple Pro Street Tirana there. It's actually impeccably presented. The car's paint is, I would say, very close to a 9 out of 10 on the paint.
It's a standout car.
It's got is that a Glide?
Yes, Glide 9-inch.
Glide 9-inch, beautiful engine, starts, drives, all the lights working. It's a turnkey Pro Street car if anyone in the country wanted it. Yeah. And obviously Chris at Australian Muscle Car Sales is the contact for that, but they can ship the car anywhere, including WA, which he does often. Actually, some of the best cars Chris has sold are now in WA. If it's not sold, we'll let you guys know anyway, and you guys can post it up yourselves. Thank you.
Yeah. So those of you that are watching the video, and if you're listening to us as a podcast, go back and watch the YouTube video. You'll see I'll have pictures of the Tirana on the screen, so you'll be able to see that. And head to Australian Muscle Car Sales, and you'll be able to see it there. It is a beautiful example of a Tirana. The paint in the video looked absolutely magnificent. I think he said $95,000 worth every single cent, and it's helping out a gentleman that's he's got a terminal illness, and it would be, the money is, every cent
it's just
would be
for
going.
Family, Nick.
Yeah. So it's not, it's a very important sale. Let's put it that way. All right, guys. I mean, in your show, you wanted to know in your last episode what was going on behind the scenes in drag racing, and what do we need to do to kick things off again. It's a question that's been bugging me as well, and I'm the most cautious person you'll ever find, but I still think we need a plan out of COVID-19 to get us back racing. I know you guys feel that frustration as well. So tell us some of the things that that you've heard or seen that may be happening in the background.
Look, Nick, the episode was based on a couple of phone calls we received 48 hours prior with an imploding in a Group 1 category, of which we ended up realising that we were maybe getting pulled into a battle that had been brewing for a while between a sanctioning body and a team. But at the end of the day, Vic and I's frustration has been, and just today, Vic saw I posted a repost from Aussie Moya, who owns Orlando Speedworld, who just hosted the COVID-8 Radial Series 24 hours ago. And they've got testing all this week, every day. And I'm looking at what we're doing in Australia, and at the best of times we're disorganised when it comes to drag racing in this country and on the back foot, let alone when we've had 4 months off and there's no communication from any one of the sanctioning bodies, any track. I believe Andrea was sending out emails to their members, which is great. And Andrea's, nationally recognised by the government as a drag racing association, and I'm not sure on the status with IHRA, and we're IHRA members and racers, but You know, we've spoken to Andrew in between. They've contacted us, and I think they're feeling the frustration of the racer, Nick, to be honest. And for us, we're just racers, and we're frustrated just as you are that we're not proactive enough in this sport. If we're screaming about crowds, well, if the crowd doesn't know when we're going to be racing again, they're not going to be excited at all, let alone the racers. And you know, in the brief discussion we had over the digital media that we were conversing on, you know, you're well aware there are businesses, there are race teams, there are families that are dependent on racing to proceed, or at least have some hope on when that income's going to start again. You know, if you're a tuning shop that depends on race cars, what are you doing these days? Other than, you know, fixing a few cars that you maybe had in the workshop, there's no work coming in. No one wants to race because no one can race.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, we completely understand that frustration as well, and that's why I thought it was important that we get together, because I know since your episode last week, there's been some announcements made in terms of Sydney. So that's great news. We have some news on Perth as well, but look, I mean, you guys, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on Sydney, I've also got a bit from Andrew as well, because Simon and myself are both, Simon's an Andrew license holder and I'm an Andrew member, so they have been reasonably good with transparency. Yet in saying that, a lot of the commentary has been, we really don't know when we can get back racing.
Yeah,
and I think they're leaving a lot of this to the tracks to manage with local government or state government or federal government as to when we can get back to racing.
The thing is, though, we ended up in the situation that we're in now with the IHRA and Andra, because while Mal Bully was running Andra, he wanted Andra to become like the NHRA. He wanted Andra to be the promoter. So we have a national series, and when that series comes to your track, Andra basically grabs the keys, runs the event in the same manner the NHRA does. Ultimately, what Mal was trying to do, you know, they were just against it because they felt as though they were losing control. We find ourselves in the situation now where the TV is the same, if not worse than it was for the Group 1 guys, which means it's hard for them to get sponsorship. And every track's doing their own thing. That's how it appears to me. We don't have a real national series anymore. You know, Andrew's not really interested in Group 1 because there's no one there to promote it. There's no one that's got the gusto or the drive to push that. I understand, you know, and I'll be honest with you guys, I've not been a fan of the IHRA or Thunder 400 since this all happened, because the way I see it is they were the ones that pushed for this breakup to happen. But understand that they're trying to make something of it. But, you know, at the end of the day, all the Group 1 cars, whether it be top fuel, top door slammer, top alcohol, pro stock, any of those things, when I was racing Super Street, I thought Super Street was the class to be in. When I raced Super Sedan, I thought the same thing. Super stock, etc., etc. The reality is that top fuel does bring the crowds. The average Joe Blow that's never races to see it again. Obviously, the you know, sideshow bobbacks like the radial classes and so on are a compelling thing, especially for people that compete like myself and like yourselves. But overall, the Group 1 classes are the ones that are going to get the bums on the seats. And the reality is that in this country, you can't afford to run Group 1. You've got to spend 10, 15 grand at a meeting to try and win 4. It's not, you know, it's not feasible. And if you haven't got the TV and you haven't got the sponsorship and you haven't got the bums on the seats to begin with, well, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be a diminishing return. And eventually there's not going to be anyone left to run because they're all broke.
There was a lot there, wasn't there?
Look, I'm hearing you. We concur. You know, we're all on the same page. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you know, we were saying with Sam, you know, the country's not big enough to have 2 sanctioning bodies. You know, hopefully there may be some amalgamation, or I don't know. I mean, you know, what's the reality? One will drop off. I don't know, but definitely there will be some change. I can tell you that. You know, things will ramp up, and obviously, you know, change is a good thing. You know, you got tracks that are split. You know, races are split. I mean, yeah, there's too many chiefs. I'll leave you with that.
There's a lot that we can't say right now, gents, and I'm sure that you're in the same position. The fundamental issue in Australian drag racing is exactly what you said, Nick, that there is no direction other than from what the tracks initiatives are, which is just, holding pattern and hold and wait for the government. The difference is if you look at the NRL, if you look at the AFL, if you look at any other sanctioning body, if you look at VA Supercars themselves, where they were proactive in government lobby, they were proactive in opening things up. I mean, you're talking about a contact sport like NRL or AFL, starting a season where, there are more than 30 players on the field. There's another 30 or 40 support staff. There's another 30 or 40 media representations in order to film the game. And they're proceeding with their season, yet we're sitting on our hands saying, in July, maybe if they open it up to 100, we might do a test day. Well, mate, what happens to all the sponsors in drag racing? What happens to all the people that have businesses in drag racing, all the people that have invested in cars? Well, we just meant to sit back and say, well, we'll just wait until, the Queensland government decides to open the border?
Yeah.
What have we done about it,
Yep.
That's my question.
Being proactive.
Yep. So I can answer part of that, and this is the frustration that I feel now, because after I watched your episode, I took the initiative myself to try and find out when on earth we are going to get racing in WA, and I've kind of hit a dead end. But I've got some information here from Venues West. Now I'm going to read. Venues West is the government agency or the government body that runs the Perth Motorplex. This is a letter that I got from them today. And basically, I will read this out. This is come from the communications manager, but it was, I can attribute this to the Venues West CEO, David Etherton. Venues West has advised consistently that our belief is that the Motorplex is best owned and run by the private sector. Pursuit of that objective continues. Like all major events in WA, the Motorplex is currently closed due to COVID-19 restrictions. It is not expected to reopen before the end of the usual winter recess. Venues West is currently funded by the government to run the Motorplex in the 2020-21 season, and should major event restrictions be lifted, consideration of next year's operations will occur. Now, on that, you can read that as you will. It doesn't really tell us a hell of a lot there. I also got a text message as well from an employee at the Motorplex that went on to say, and I'm not going to disclose who that employee is, given the lack of uncertainty regarding an opening date, all staff have been paid till the end of their contracts in May. Unfortunately, those contracts have not been extended. So I don't know.
And I believe that the same goes for the food vendors, the promotional vendors, and so on and so forth.
And sponsors too.
Correct.
So what we're saying, boys, is that at this stage, given the body in charge of the Western Motorplex and inside information from WA is that basically Perth Motorplex is closing as of June.
Whereas at the end of May, the contracts aren't renewed.
It's how I read between these lines that are really blurred right now. And I wish government agencies would give us a better direction, because the people at the Perth Motorplex, the staff more than anyone deserve better than that. The racers deserve better than that.
The thing is, though, if they do make an announcement along those lines, saying that it's indefinitely closed, there will be some sort of backlash. The reality is that governments across Australia don't see as drag racing as that important, because less than 1% of the population even know it exists. So it's not really an election issue. The thing is, though, I think that we've proven in the past we know how to make a lot of noise.
And smoke.
And smoke, that's right.
Yeah. And I've got to add,
the only
2 seconds, is that we use a Motorplex here for Speedway, of course. And much like Western Sydney, we use the car park for Autocana, Motorcana events, stuff like that.
Time attack, yeah.
I've been doing some investigation today, best I can without breaking the news to people. They have slowly been informed today as well to find alternate venues.
Oh.
So that means, like, a few of those guys I know heavily involved rock up with their own crew, and all they basically use is a forklift to put some barriers out. They open up one food van, and that's all they need. They've been told they can't even have that. Apparently, the padlocks are on the gate.
On power and talk.
Yeah, so there you go. But that's, as much as I know about, just using the car park at our motorplex. So
The disappointment in what you've just announced is that I would say in WA, and Vic and I can only speak on what we know of, Eddie Tassoni and all the radial guys that, are investing heavily in radial racing and travelling all across the country. But we've known about Eddie for a long time, and even back in the horsepower days at Summer Nats and all the stuff that he was doing and growing the sport in WA and bringing it to the map. You guys are very passionate, very committed. And I dare say that the Perth Motorplex has the reputation of being the best facility
Absolutely.
In Australia. The disappointment we have is, given this news, there is no leadership in drag racing to then fight that and lobby the government.
No.
That's the point.
Who's the main point of contact that says, hey, hold on, this is what we need? Where is it now?
Now is that I think Perth is an Andrew track. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I know that Brett is probably going to be on the front foot once he finds this information out. If you don't know, Brett Stevens is the CEO of or current, leader of the Andrew team, of which he's running a skeleton staff, and he's running an organisation which falls under, I believe they fall under Motorsports Australia, which falls under FIA. So they're actually recognised as a government body in motorsport. I hope that he can, ring tomorrow and try and get a result for the youth, for the businesses involved, but it just doesn't sound good for Perth Motorplex from what you guys are telling us.
I think the big question mark on all of that is, if a buyer is found of the Perth Motorplex, then all, everything changes and we continue on as per normal. But that said, we know that the track has been for sale for a significant amount of time now. Simon, about 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, and they had serious offers on the table. There's proposed marina directly across the road, the Indian Ocean Gateway, of which there's a website set up with all the details. On the map, the Kwinana Motorplex is marked out as industrial land.
Potential, so it says potential industrial.
Potential, yeah. I don't know, but if WA loses a track, then the sport is going to be in dire straits.
That would happen.
Mm.
You would hate to think that would happen. That would be catastrophic.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yep. But at this stage, I mean, as I said, I'll post that on our website because that is an official letter from Venues West that I had advised them that I would be reading that tonight on a podcast, and they would not speculate any further than that. And I guess we probably shouldn't either. But I'm reading what was given to us, and that reads to me. One thing it does tell me, they don't know when they're reopening. And I understand, in my correspondence to Venues West, I understand we can't open, we can't go too fast. Mark McGowan, the WA Labor WA Premier, has been very, very cautious in his approach. We completely understand his strategy, and 99% of West Australians agree with what he's been doing.
Yeah.
In saying that, there's no reason why we couldn't aim for a 2021, just a
fresh start.
A date that's out of the, doesn't need to be. We don't need to stick to that. If something happens, we can change that. But at this stage,
and
there's no
even the streetcar racing, the Wednesday nights, there's no reason why they can't just put a cap on the number of cars and just tell people, you need to abide by your social distancing. I mean, when you're in the car, you're gonna be a good metre and a half away from anyone. That's guaranteed.
Very correct. What are the implications on the youth? Isn't that why we took racing off the streets and opened up drag strips? I mean,
that's exactly what these politicians need to understand. You've got Channel 9 promoting the Street Outlaws, both the Street Outlaws series. If people are going to know where to race, they're going to turn to that and say, well, let's just do it. And I mean, it's not like 30 years ago, where the cars, were 14-second cars. Now there's guys with 7-second cars that drive around on the street. You don't want those types of cars racing each other on the streets. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, this is where, again, we need leadership in the sport, gentlemen, and our voices and your voices are the start of it. The racer, I mean, I'm sure you guys get messages every week and every day. We get messages every day, all day, about, you know, what's happening in the sport, and the races are aligned, I think, with everything we're saying. I think there's a disconnect between the people that are in leadership positions in the sport and the people like us, which are just diehard racers that are trying to grow the sport. You know, if you look at your show, you're up to, you know, episode 86, or from what you were saying on the intro, that's, you know, that's a lot of time and effort that you guys put in to grow the sport in WA and nationally. I don't think people understand just the sort of work that it takes to do that, but it's a sacrifice you're making. And it's the same as Vic and I. You know, we technically we started the show just to. I only wanted to find 2 sponsors for my race car. I did that in the first 2 weeks. The rest has turned into a labour of love now. But you know, if it falls on deaf ears for all of us, gents, it means nothing. You know, we you know, we can only lobby government so much as racers. You need people in positions of authority in the sport to turn around and say, no, Mr. Government, we need the racetrack to protect the youth. We need the racetrack to bring in income. We need the races to come from Sydney, Queensland, and Victoria to race at Perth Motorplex, because that keeps people employed.
Yeah.
You know, they're the factors that we need to be looking at. It just feels like it keeps getting overlooked, gentlemen. I gather that's your frustration as well.
Yeah.
Is it time for us to have a crack at getting someone into the Senate?
You know, government lobbying is the only way to do it. I can only tell you in Sydney Dragway, from everything we've been told, that, you know, it's government lobbying every day. Every day there's someone lobbying the government for at least recognition or understanding. And I believe that the recent funds that were allocated between Eastern Creek Raceway and Sydney Dragway was at least 10 years in the making of lobbying. But you can see the result, right? And breaking news for you, this Thursday we've got one of the leaders of the steering committee for all the upgrades, who's in charge of the allocation of funding. He's government approved, will be on the show. A gentleman named Frank Tarabay will be joining us on Thursday to go over the process and everything that's happening. And he's making changes himself in line with that. But, you know, the government has to play a role in Perth, to be honest with you. They have to play, and I've made the government aware of some things in Willowbank, and they need to get involved there. It's still council owned in Willowbank. I can break some news to you this evening in regards to Calder Park. Only 5 minutes before we came on air, we were on a 40-minute phone call, and I can tell you that that we have on good authority that the Jane Corporation is going to be resurfacing the track in Calder Park. It will be done. Yes, cemented, I believe, the whole way. It will be done
by
track. The whole track.
The whole track.
Wow.
Big plans.
Yeah, and they're trying to stay away from politics as much as they can, and really it will be a venue for hire, and the people that we're speaking to have that direct information from the Jane Corporation that own it. That's the word on the street. So.
Some positive news.
There's some positive news.
Yeah.
The disappointing news is that Swan Hill probably will be down for a long time.
Okay.
What's happening at Swan Hill?
Swan Hill is a council-owned initiative in the Dragway, and I believe it's a matter of funding at this stage. There is just no funding at the moment. There's a problem in the, I think it's from the 330 mark. Sorry, maybe 400 mark, somewhere there. Yeah. That's a everywhere. 660 track there mainly, and the top end of it is it's sinking in the transition.
There's a bit of a big step.
And there's a bit of a step which is dangerous. You can't run on it. They've cancelled Jamboree because of it, and I believe that the council obviously needs to rip that up and redo it, and that takes a lot of money. So unless a benefactor comes forward, I think that track will be shut for a while.
I mentioned the dust.
There's a dust issue there.
There is a big dirt and dust issue there. When it does blow a gale, mate, it just covers the joint.
Yeah, Harry's mentioned that to me a few times, that it's a bit sketchy when you get the dust storm coming through there.
Absolutely. And speaking of dust and dirt, I'm hearing that Perth Motorplex also has a speedway connected to it.
Correct.
Are there any major issues with that? I don't see an issue with the speedway going to Sydney Dragway, to be honest with you. I see investment opportunity. I see increased revenues. I see increased family attendance. I don't see major issues other than the issues being raised regarding dust. Perhaps you guys can shed some light and let us know, is it being managed? Is it just a scheduling issue? What sort of happens there?
So our track, if you can imagine how your track and our track is more or less like a Coliseum setup. So the very top section on the other side is the speedway track. That's how close together they are. So basically we have the food vendors and the alcohol vendors through the centre, and on one side we have the speedway, on the other side we have the drag strip. Now, they normally don't run together except for the Powerpalooza meeting, and the Wednesday night sometimes they'll have the some speedway cars there. The dust can sometimes be a problem. It really comes down to which way the wind is blowing. But to be honest with you guys, the burnout comps that they have a break on the Wednesday nights, and at the halfway mark they send some cars out to do some burnouts. That is way more of a problem. You basically can't run on the track after the burnouts have run because there is so much crap on the track, to the point where, I've nearly had, on my motorbike, I've nearly had an accident there. Just driving back up through the burnout pad, there's that much rubber stuck to your back tyre that you literally have to scrape it off. So, yeah, that's more of an issue. There, over the years, people have complained about the dust getting on there, but if they compact it down, and what they did at Kwinana was they brought in clay, so it's not really,
Dust.
dirt, but it's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's not really that bad.
It's not the end of the world, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and the thing is, I guess for a radial prep track, it would be different. See, we never really get that kind of prep over here. We get what I think is commonly referred to as a dry track, which is more suited to a big tyre car.
Yep.
You get that wet look like the last meeting where all the records went, the COVID.
Huge records.
Yeah. That track, like, I don't know how they put the glue down. I think they just knocked a 44 over and squeegeed it on or something. It's ridiculous, I guess that it would be different for that type of situation. If you got dust on that type of surface, that would be a problem. Like Swan Hill. Swan Hill is renowned that when the track's on, it's killer. But as soon as that dust comes, it's all over. Where are they going to build it if they build it at Sydney?
It'll be similar to the placement of where it is in Perth Motorplex. It's back right-hand corner if you are looking down the track. So if you're in the right-hand lane, then it would be in the top right-hand corner of the racetrack at the top end, which...
That's currently the spectator entrance now, yeah?
Yeah, so where the spectator entrance is, there's a car park there. And where that car park is where they're planning to put the speedway. So,
now from memory, the wind blows across from the rubbish tip. So it'd be, the dust would be blowing across the braking area.
That's the concern. I raised with the steering committee whether 2020, can we do something, Is there technology that we can apply? Is there fencing? Is there absorbent? Is there, mist? Is there something that we can do in order to reduce that? Because even the tip that's there, they've put water sprayers and fencing out to reduce everything, and that's worked. So, surely in 2020 we can do something.
We'd like to think so, yeah. I mean, I don't. My understanding, it's never been a big issue in Perth either. We hear commentary from time to time that there's dust on the track, but it certainly hasn't. It doesn't dictate the discussion, does it, Simon? Not in WA.
No.
Yeah.
No. So they're going to move Parramatta there if this goes ahead.
I believe the deal's done, mate. To be honest, from what Vic and I have been told, what did they say to you? December or something. Someone was
pretty much, it was signed, sealed, delivered December.
And that's so they can develop the land at Parramatta?
Correct, yes.
They'll just be apartments.
There's been that many.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's going to be residential.
We'll just continue with it. So
that's it.
But correct us if we're wrong. The $11 million that's earmarked for Sydney is not tied into the speedway at all. That funding is for the drag strip.
From what I understand, there are portions for investment. I can't reveal I think Frank will reveal the dollar amount on Thursday. He's asked that or not do that, but the total 11 is not being spent so far, so I'm not sure whether that amount has been allocated for something else.
Okay. No, that's fine. No, that's good. Look, I mean, that's some great news, and one way or another, that things are progressing in Sydney, and we're really happy to hear that. Also, there's just a note from Willowbank Raceway as well. COVID-19 update. Just a quick update as to where we stand. With three-stage easing of restrictions that the Queensland government has published at this point in time. Willowbank is unable to open under the strict guidelines that they have been put in place, and we are now evaluating as restrictions begin to ease how we can begin a return to racing. We understand how frustrating this situation is for everyone, as it is for us. We do not yet have a start date to hold events with over 100 people, which means we cannot even try to put a calendar together to see what the rest of the season will look like, but we can guarantee the calendar will be jam-packed. Once we're given the green light, we are hoping to get started with competitor test days and small events, keeping in line with all government restrictions. We are currently in discussions with the government. As soon as we have any information, we'll let you know. Rest assured, as soon as we are able to open, we will be open. So that's great news from Willowbank. They're just saying the right things. Again, no dates, but the dialogue is a lot more positive.
Look,
Definitely after last Thursday, anyway.
I can't help but think that actually appeared on their Facebook page not long after yes. I think it was the day after, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Hours.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we did get a phone call from certain members of the board at Willowbank, basically to say thanks for the kick up the arse, because they were sort of sitting on the fence on whether to make an announcement, because they, as you can see, they don't have. And Queensland's probably the worst state of all when it comes to any direct information from the Pellicet government. But they were well aware that there was a frustration brewing, and Vic and I made it known how bad the frustration was. But that's all they needed to do, because that gives the racer hope that the minute that there's an announcement, bang, they're going to be back at racing at Willowbank. So congratulations to the board in moving swiftly and giving information. And I gather, gents, that's what it's all about. If we're communicating with each other inside the sport, then surely we'll be able to put a message together for outside of the sport. Mm-hmm. But as Vic said the other day, you can't have the blind leading the blind.
No, and we all need to know when the start date's going to be so we can get ready. And you guys would know there's stuff you got to order. You don't want to order slicks and stuff and then have them sitting for 6 months. You know what I mean? Like,
we don't have that problem, mate. But anyway,
radials are on the shelf. No, but I know what you mean.
You walked into that one, Simon.
100%. I've asked for Mickey Thompson to remove slick tyres globally. I haven't had a response.
Gum boots are dead.
Anyway.
Fair enough. Hey guys, we don't want to labour too much. We get in pretty in depth and political there. So let's just lighten the mood a little bit. I want to talk about like your radial racing credentials, which are you certainly have them. You guys are, in my mind, Simon's mind as well, I think he agrees, you've naturally become the face of the radial movement in Australia. The Kenda deal's a great gig, but how do we make that a national gig?
I think we need to get back to racing first.
In a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we've spoken to Scott Harker and Justin Simpson, who are the boys that have created the Kenda series, and we've spoken to Donald Long, who invented radial racing pretty much in the US. And look, Donald's take on it is this: the first movement that we need to do is to keep getting the numbers. We've done it in Queensland now with the boys. The boys have done it in New South Wales. The next cab off the rank needs to be either WA or Victoria. Mm-hmm. I believe WA will probably be closer, but it depends on the track there now. Mm-hmm. And it needs to become a national series. And the reason for that is, whilst it's nice to travel, it's probably nicer to have a national series of which you can bring on more exposure to the Kinder brand, and more sponsorship from a national level means more money. And Vic and I are Vic's been probably the biggest pusher in Australia for more prize money. He's taken a bit of prize money off the Kinder boys. There's a few checks here behind us, but the big thing is the more money we can put back to the racer in prize money, I believe brings us more races, more investment, more spectators, because the rivalry starts with the money. I mean, let's just take 235 between, you, George, and Ash Mason. There's a very strong rivalry there, in the 235 radial scene.
Oh, look,
everyone's pushing each other.
That's it. I mean, it stems just from having a go, and then someone wants to chase and go forward. I mean, if we just backtrack, 24 months ago, I mean, when I first run the 230,
it was on the Valiant back here.
Yeah, 235s. I mean, I had, Scotty Cortina, who was running that big HG, that 598 big block with the, nitrous deal and that, and he was in 275. He put 235s on, and the chase was on. Hence why we'll race it every 6-7 months. And, it was just getting exciting, you know what I mean? Like, you're racing week in, week out. People are drawn to it, I mean, there's rivalries. There's people, saying, hey, let's have a look at this class. And a lot of guys will not only just step down the class because obviously guys started stepping up and running, faster programs, but, there's more appeal, you know what I mean? So I guess the excitement comes from, high horsepower, small cars, and it's just fantastic to watch in terms of what it is, I mean, anybody can have a go. It's 8th mile. It's heads up. It's, you've got a chance, There's not much rule.
Not over here, it's not. No, we run quarter mile. We're not scared to go that last bit.
I'm a quarter mile guy all the way, right? And my goal in my radial car is to run very, very fast on a global standpoint and on a 275 tyre. But in terms of the series itself, to answer your question, the biggest attraction that the Kinder series has for us is, if you just look at, even myself personally, I bought an XR6 Turbo as a daily car. I did some modifications to it. I whacked a set of radials on it, and I raced in Radial Rumble, which is the lower grade entry level into radial racing, where there's no judgment. Put a set of radials on, come out. Doesn't matter if you run 14s, 15s, 12s, 7s, or 8s. You just need to get down in your car and fit the rules. And that's where I feel radial racing will overtake the traditional format of racing. The reason for that is you don't need to have $50,000 engines and $20,000 gearboxes to go and compete in the radial series. That's the difference.
It attracts a lot of the grassroots racers.
And the grassroots racer is the attraction, which I believe is where drag racing needs to be putting their investment. It's getting the kids literally off the street, whacking a set of radials, helping them set the car up, and letting them have some fun and competing. Why I believe the Kinder series will be able to grow nationally. But it does need the tracks to do that. And we're back to the same issue that we started the episode with you guys.
Yeah.
How do you see that being any different to Super Street or Super Sedan?
I believe it's just the show now. So Super Street and Super Sedan, obviously built traditionally on the same methodology, grassroots racing, different tiers. It's now just about culminating the show that has become radial racing, and the results on radial tyres and the marketing around that via the social landscape.
The look of the cars, the horsepower that these cars are producing. I mean, you're talking potentially the fastest cars in Australia all radials.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go swing for the hills and say that,
Well, 356 to the 8th, I think, was just run by a nitrous car in the US.
Brent Reese brothers.
205 mile. I think Marcus Pert just won it on that.
That's correct.
And if we're looking at that split time, well, you've got to really have a look at all these other categories and tyre classes and see exactly why they're running big steamrollers and what the attraction is. You need to tub the car at that point. You need to, totally have a full-time race car. Whereas, if you've got a V or Commodore where you can sit a set of 235s on and hit it down the track, that's a different style of racing. And I think that brings you back to the core when Andrew was running Super Sedan. and Super Sedan had, 200 competitors at a national event.
Oh, we love those days.
You know, we raced those days, yeah.
You look at the years 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, you've had fields of 160, 180, 200, 220 cars at a national meeting, and you'd be going rounds, man, and, it was exciting stuff. I mean, where are we now? Well, this is where we are now, I mean, was that bad? No, absolutely not. Can we get that back again? That is the question for I mean, it's very hard. I think between the tracks and between having two sanctioning bodies and so many different rules, classes and stuff, it obviously kills things off. I'm a believer it does.
I just think it's the youth now, gents.
And what appeals to you?
So if you look at the youth, they're on social media, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. If they're looking at these times being done by radial cars, they're saying, Mum, Dad, I want a radial car, I want to go radial racing. And that's the only difference.
We had the junior dragsters, that we reached out to, and we had some tyres that I think Scotty Harker was trying to get approved there. We're going to have maybe, top 6 or top 8 guys on JDs, but they were doing some testing. What's his name from Paramount?
Terry Singh,
from Paramount Performance in Queensland. There was, I know he was testing some tyres, and I think they were reaching out and trying to get it approved for sanctioning bodies for obviously safety issues and stuff to make sure that the tyres are right. They were going to sponsor the JDs and say, right, put these on and come out and obviously get the younger kids, because we've had a lot of younger guys in JDs reach out to us and say the radial stuff's crazy. I mean, just the appeal, I mean, guys that came to that Sydney event, and I know the boys tried for 2 years to put it on, and without being, I don't know, too judgmental, saying, there was resistance, whatever, they finally agreed and we put the event on, and it was probably one of their best events ever that they had just now in March.
The goal was
in February, this year.
The goal was 90 cars. I think they had 140.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
The only problem
and there was prize money, etc.
The only problem that I see with that, having run radials, and I'm currently the quickest and fastest in WA on radials, is the track prep. Unless that track prep's there, you're not going to run fast. That's just how it is,
Yeah. Look, I ran at a couple of national meetings. We went back there at the 400 series. They had a pro radial class, and you're right. I mean, the guys did struggle. I mean, these big slick things, they just got to turn the tyre to go. I mean, guys were singing them everywhere, but I guess it all comes down to power management, and everyone's in the same boat. I mean, some of us still run fast. I mean, we did run PBs, which goes back to what you're saying, but I guess it depends, where do you want to be and where do you want to do it,
I think the main thing needs to be, where does radial racing fit in Australia? And you're the fastest in WA. You can see the attraction. You can see potential sponsors based on the attraction. The movement itself is something new. It's something exciting. Are we seeing a movement away from Group 1? I believe we are. I believe that the youth can relate more to radial racing or to
radial cars,
to a standard style car like Super Sedan style racing now more than ever, because you guys said yourself the amount of money it takes to run a Group 1 category, and
but you don't think that radial's going to end up the same way?
It can, and we've warned the Kenda boys about it, and I've seen it myself with my car, right? But then it's just a matter of choosing the class that you can afford and running the class that you can afford and being part of the show. And I think the show itself is a very positive show that the whole radial series can put together, and the fact that radial racing recognises all categories. It's not just the big outlaw guys. And if you look at what just happened at COVID, I don't even know who won the Outlaw 315 series at COVID. I don't know. I think it was Marcus Burt won it. I didn't care because in 275 you had, the record pass that was laid down by Mark Mickey. So
and then Sullivan.
But see that's a good what you've just Mark Mickey's car is a good example, right? So that's still a full chassis car. That's still a serious motor.
Absolutely.
So this is where I struggle with the whole radial deal in Australia at the moment, because there's so many different people going in so many different directions with it. Like in WA, I can't run my car on a Wednesday night. Every time we come forward and say, all right, well, you want us to put an interior in the car, you want us to put windscreen wipers, whatever, we'll do it. They'll introduce a new rule to say, oh, no, you can't have this or you can't have that. You know what I mean? So the last one, we fitted mufflers to the car, and we've got a cowl, like an 8-inch cowl to cover the supercharger. And they said, oh, you can't have the hat sticking out. Then they said, oh, the exhaust needs to be all the way to the dick.
It sounds like every time they open their mouth, they're paying you a compliment here.
What it is that ultimately, right, let's be honest about it. If we want to be like the Yanks, then we've got to adopt rules that are like that, which basically there is no rules. You know what I mean? It's the tyre minimum weight, and with the Pro 275 class, which I like the Pro 275 class, it's still got to be a steel body and resemble, not a Pro Mod car. I think the sooner we get to that, the more opportunity there's going to be for the class to grow. Because I tell you what, Nick will vouch for this. I want to go over there and race, but I'm scared. I'm scared to go over there because I'm going to, you can't run. You've got the wrong door handles, or, your blinkers don't work.
Are you saying you want to race in Sydney, or you want to race in the US?
Well, I'm in the process now of just clarifying, because we're gonna front half the car and put factory rails back in it so that it's IHRA legal. But I want to make sure that whatever I do, I can race, because I'd hate to tow over there and be told I can't run.
No, there's only a few rules. So are you going 275 or 315?
Oh, I'd like to stick with the 315 personally.
315. There are no rules, my friend. It's run what
the rule book says.
No. If you were to race Kenda, the rule is 315 tyre. Run what you've run.
So that's Willowbank only, yeah?
No, Sydney, Willowbank.
They're running Sydney as well. Mm-hmm. And that's got nothing to do with Thunder, IHRA.
Nothing at all. Nothing. Your car has to be IHRA teched.
Yep. And IHRA license holder.
Yeah, so they use that as a sanctioning. Oh no, not for that car. You need to have
it. Runs 11 O's, man. What are you talking about? Super Street license will get it going.
Just launch off the line and let it roll through. What's the fastest mile an hour that you've actually run in that car?
At the 8th.
No, I let him go quarter because they're quarter boys.
Hasn't it gone 217?
228.
228. So wouldn't it be a nice match race? You versus Zapier, you on radials, him on slicks, prep on each one, $5,000 for the win. Can't we promote something like that?
No, I'd rather put the slicks on.
That's the easy way, not the fast way.
We were ready to go to Potung's meeting. I was keen to go. Yeah, because I've gone 390 plenty of times on the big tyres, and it's all steel. It's all steel, standard dimensions, standard size. It's just a taxi.
Man. It's not cheap, but bring it down.
But look, the radial deal. I mean, we were promoting the radial deal years ago, telling people that this was the future, because back then the numbers were incredible, considering that the tracks weren't as prepped as they are now. I mean, now that's like flypaper. It's Velcro. You know what I mean? So, and that's the thing that I see as being a problem, because I'd love to run on a track like that. You can have the rear end set up just about neutral and the car will stick. Then it's just power management from that point onwards. And on the 235, you would know what I'm talking about with power management, because that's what it's all about.
180 to 60, man. That much is moving. Excuse my French.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. It's unbelievable.
Beep, beep. Was that our first beep? Beep.
That's passion. That's passion.
Don't panic. It's all good. It's all right.
Pre-recorded, mate. It's all right. You might be.
Yeah. It's all good here. Gents, I'll just looking at your car in the background caught my eye before. Speaking of COVID-8, there's a fitting tribute there on that Valiant on the bonnet. That's a Donald Long hat and
that's the genuine. We'll give you a closer look. That's the genuine one.
That is awesome.
In 2014.
I don't know if you can read it from there, but there's a personalised message to us which says, "To my Aussie brothers, love you always, with love, Duck."
Radial tyres to the front.
Radial tyres to the front.
MF.
And that's the hat that goes to the...
that's one of the winners' champion. That's an open comp hat. I managed to score it off the winner there, and I brought it back on the plane.
Oh,
I think
wow.
that might have been
crazy, man. That's awesome. Unbelievable. Yeah. And what's the story with the Valiants?
There's a Valiant. Well, look, I'm a Chrysler guy. I'm a naturally aspirated guy. My roots stem from NA, Pro Stock, that stuff. My mind goes crazy. Don't ask me. I got tied up with a wheel. That's a long story, but that was something I was playing with in the downtime, the RBs. But my father obviously had Chrysers and stuff, and grew up around Valiants. And yeah, this is my 68V VIP. Obviously, it runs 235 steel rim radials, and that car used to run like 970s, 136 aspirated with a small block about.
That's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah, man. So yeah, that's all.
So,
He's working with his mate Nick Zarakis on the next engine for that.
So that's crazy. Steve from Motortech with the yellow VL, he's a Chrysler head as well.
Yeah. He's a bit of a mopo guy. Yeah, I was a bit shocked to hear that. A few years I didn't know that, but yeah, he loves these old Chargers and
there's
stuff.
the VL. You want to open the engine bay? Can you open?
No, we can't show them the motors out.
I was panicking there. I didn't know. There it is. That's actually what's it? That's the fastest 3-litre. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Cars
unbelievable,
block, water
man.
block.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
We can't rate the we really need to get the tracks open. I mean, like I said, we run like 499s, 50s when we run the 740s, and to go 482, 148, like, you know, we just sort of know where it's going to go out the back door of the car. So we're just hanging to get the tracks open and 1 or 2 to the 8th and do a Hail Mary and run it out the back door and pull the chutes and come back, and that's it, man.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
He makes it sound easy.
Hopefully we might see that magic 740 or 750 come up. But,
Mate, there's some serious gap between you and the rest of the boys, that's for sure.
Gap? Look, there's a buddy of mine, George, down south, George Javeski from Lotus Caravans. He's got a billet one of these. He's crazy. He's got the big dog, the grandfather to this. I mean, Justin Wilkinson up there at JW did a 3.2 deal for him on methanol. The car's actually got
single cam or twin cam?
No, it's a single cam as well. He runs 4 glass windows. I've got 4 Lexton. He runs back seat, front seat. Everything's on the car except for wipers. He put 235s on the car. Actually, I'll backtrack. He put 255s on in January, and he went out the back door 2 passes and run 740 at 193.8. He come back around. I looked at the time. I said, geez, man, he just went 490 at 153 to the 8th on a 130. I said, geez, Sydney's going to be interesting next month. I go to Justin. Justin goes, I've got a few things up my sleeve. Anyway, we get to Sydney, man. The thing belts out a bloody 470 at 157.
Holy smoke.
Holy shit, man, on 235s. I said, dude, man, this thing's going to be awesome. Anyway, he did 3 runs. He went through the second round. Unfortunately, got a bit loose on him. He sort of pedalled it on and off, and he ended up crashing the car. So that thing's all apart in the last sort of 2.5 months, and they've been working pretty hard to get that car back together. But he did tell me, he goes, he wasn't going to run it out the back on 235s. He goes, you put the 255s back on and do it. And their plan is, you know, the numbers are lining up to see probably a 7.0, and obviously the 690 chase will be on 200 mile single cam.
Well, next
Wow,
time
that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
He bought the Icanu car.
He bought the Icanu car off the Sheik there, the Lexus.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah?
The ISF, you know, that thing there. So
next time we're with him, we'll give you guys a call. You can have a private viewing of the Icanu car.
Is that the chassis one or the back halved one?
the back half one. Yeah.
So that was Ferris's car for a while, eh?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. The car was running in that Pro Boost class with weight, like it weighed something stupid like 3380 or something like that. That's just ridiculous, man. It was running like 4 rows, 4 ones, you know, like over the 8 on 275s. Obviously, there was a couple of things where they said, no, you can't put the 275s because of this and that on the back of the floor. I'm like, look, put the 315, let the guy get a bit of a feel, and he managed to get just a couple of runs in, just that Jambo. They obviously got washed out, so he couldn't really do much, but he got a bit of a feel for the car, I think, for the 330. So
that car's now back to new specs. So that's the fuel tech's been removed.
Motec's back in the car.
JW's put a Motec back in there. All the stuff that Shane T sort of had in there. In there.
Yep.
And it's got the turbos that it used to have is now back on there. So
the 88s.
Yeah. So that car's now back to Icanu spec, and we've reached out to the Sheik as well, trying to get him down the next time it races. But there's some exciting things happening in our worlds as well as some other people that we're, associated with. But racing, I think, racing's got a lot of momentum in Australia. I just don't think we're harnessing it well enough.
100%. 100%.
Yep, definitely.
Agreed 100% on that
I
statement.
mean, you guys are definitely doing your bit. 86 episodes in,
Wow,
just
man.
recapping. Like, that's a testament to you guys, and well done. And
Congratulations.
you guys are flying the flag hard for
Thank you.
WA and the country, and good on you guys. And
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you for everything you do for the sport, because we understand exactly what goes into, bringing content to the people, and you guys should be commended. And we'll be sure to give you guys a huge shout out on our show on Thursday, because, we need to be supporting each other to grow the sport together.
100%.
Guys, it's something that Nick and I talk about frequently. I don't know if you had the opportunity during the late 80s, early 90s to go down to Calder Park and watch any of the racing there. Back in those days, more people went to the drags than all the other sports combined in Australia.
We had this discussion.
I was going to cut you off there. Sorry, Simon. I remember going there in 95, 96, 97, TAC Nationals. And I remember we're entered in Super Street. And I used to look on the left there, and you could see, no word of a lie, I reckon 15, maybe 20,000 people, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. What happened? Where did this all go, man?
Yeah.
I know. It's a tragedy.
And they don't believe you, but there are some photos, and I'm going to pull them out. Like, I was only a young bloke at the time, and I used to look, and I said, holy shit, look at these people, man. It was electric, the atmosphere, man.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely.
What changed?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, still to this day, if you get someone that's never been to the drags and expose them to Door Slam or Top Fuel or Funny Car, they're blown away. Absolutely blown away. We have this thing over here called the Festival of Speed, and Zap's gone a couple of times, and you get all these people that they're more the circuit car sect. They have the champagne and so on, and when he comes out and does a skid past and blows their hair back in a big way, and they're like, what was that? What the hell, That's what we need to expose people to it. I'd love to see a drag strip down, the centre of Oxford Street there in Sydney. That's what we need to do. We need to bring it to the people.
Look, don't get him started on that, please. Your episode, I don't know how to react, but don't get him started.
I never forget the time at the Festival of Speed. Rob Pilkington, in a top alcohol funny car, did a burnout down the straight of Wanneroo Raceway, and then, this is no word of a lie, I think I've got it on video somewhere, was able to spin it 180 degrees and do a burnout back the other way in a top alcohol funny car. That is no word of a lie. Rob Pilkington, legend. Absolutely local legend, Rob Pilkington.
Oh, there was a match race between the Castrol Formula One team and the Castrol Funny Car years ago. Alan Dobson, Greg Gow was the crew chief back in those days, and it was the same thing. That the Funny Car, obviously got the jump on the Formula One car, and then had to negotiate a corner and get the car back. So yeah, there's been some amazing things in the promotion, and I guess that's kind of seems to have gone. It seems like we're not really pushing that anymore.
Yep.
We're back to the first question.
We are. Guys, it would be remiss of us before we finish up. We need to talk about one more thing. It's the elephant in the room, and that's the FGX and Andrew Hawkins. Are we able to talk about that? Because I found I was quite interested in your project FGX and how. Can you tell us a little bit about? You may have mentioned Andrew Hawkins, Motive DVD, I believe, and the Chop.
It runs a gearbox from Western Australia, and that's the only thing saving it at the moment.
You got one of Rob's gearboxes.
Yeah, we got a Monster Torque gearbox in there. The project FGX came about. I had a VF LSA, and I've been a Holden guy since day one.
Sam's been a HSV guy since he was born, I think. But anyway, this is he's changed religions. I will do that.
I like to put that they dropped me before I dropped them.
He's putting the blame on Scafey's mate. Anyway.
I'll be honest. I really missed the turbo in the race car, and that's been a bit delayed. And I said, you know what, I'll shift the GDS now because it's a good time to get rid of it. People wanted it. It was the end of HSV, and I got some good money for it at the time. And then I said, I'm going to build a daily driver that's just an absolute weapon that I can compete with at the runway events and the roll racing here in Sydney. And I know the same crew does the roll racing in Perth. And I said to Vic,
you're building a GDR?
Well,
It's not a GDR beta.
It's an Evo. You're building an Evo.
I like doing things the hard way. Vic's built an Evo that's pretty crazy on the street with one of the boys. But the whole point is to try and get this FGX to give it to these guys. We've got the PCM Tech, which is just some software on the factory ECU, but it's got progressive traction control, boost by gear, all sorts of features that we're integrating with the Motec at the moment, Dash. We've got full logging capability. At the moment, it made just under 900 horsepower to the tyre. And went with Vic the other day, and we've got a new engine being built for it. There's nothing wrong with this one. I drove the car here, to be honest with you. But I've got a race with Andrew Hawkins because he keeps saying that he chops all the barras, and he's got a sequential gearbox and about 1,000+ horsepower in his R32. And I've told him that we're going to race for some money at his next event. So we're going to race for $1,000 pot, 500 from me, 500 from him, and the winner takes all. And let's see what the FGX can do.
Well, fingers crossed.
Mate, we'll be 100% behind you guys. I'm thinking about side bets here.
Yeah, no.
There's going to be side bets. That's why we did it, right?
Oh, there are side bets. Oh, thank goodness.
I'm going to take one of these core leads off his bloody off his injectors or something there, man. Don't worry, I'll make sure we can beat him. Don't worry. Andrew Hawkins, mate, he bit off more than he can chew, but we'll see what happens.
No, look, it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun with Hawkins, and we're going to help promote his event. And look, for me, it's definitely I'm proving that you can daily drive these cars. I picked my daughter up from school in it. I drove here. I drove my dad yesterday to go get a hot dog and a pie from his favourite place.
You drove from Sydney to Canberra.
I drove Sydney to Canberra and back.
Half a tank, man.
So it's on E85 full time. I'm just proving that the engineering from everything that the industry is moving to can be used daily. It's just your right foot that needs to be controlled.
And
I've got a big shout out to Argyle Automotive for everything they've done, put the car together, and Grant and Rob from ESP Racing in Canberra. They're the distributor for Monster Tour gearboxes for the East Coast, and that's why I delved into Monster Talk, because they said if you're going to make big amount of power, you got to use this guy in WA, and Rob's probably the best when it comes to the ZF gearbox in Australia. I think there's another guy in WA too, who does some great ZF gears. But it's got a gearbox all the way from WA.
Well, a big shout out to Rob. He'll be listening, Rob, to this. He listens to all of our episodes, and he's helped us out in the past, Rob. So shout out to Rob at Monster Talk.
Absolutely.
He's helped us out as well. I know he's helped Simon out, so he's a good guy. Yeah. One of the good guys, that's for sure.
Definitely a good guy, and he's even helped with, he understood what I was doing with the car. He got a converter set up for it, and mate, it hasn't skipped a beat, to be honest. The only thing stopping that engine from making more are the rods. So I have to put
for a standard engine. I mean, gee,
are you serious?
Getting greedy. I'll leave you with that.
Standard
engine, man.
It's got standard rods, standard pistons, standard crank.
Everything just keeps going. Like 3 months of hell. Unbelievable. But it's a testament to Ford. Yeah, to Ford, mate. People say, who built the motor? I said, Broadmeadows. They go, who's that? I said, Ford. You know what I mean?
It's got stock cams too, which people can't believe. But yeah.
Oh, geez.
That's incredible.
Simon, that sounds very reminiscent.
Look, we hope we've got enough to take down Hawkins, but anyway, we'll see.
I don't know.
It's a friendly rivalry.
I'm happy to lose 500 to get on the video.
That's it.
I think he'd charge you more than that if he was doing it on your shop.
That's it. All right, boys.
All right, guys. Well, look, I know it's getting late over there in New South Wales, so we really appreciate your time. Please shout out for the show. It is What nights is it on? Is it on always Wednesday night or is it Thursday night?
It's normally on a Thursday night.
Yep.
It's Operation Radial Freedom. We try and do it every second Thursday, but with COVID, we've been doing it every week. So I think everyone's used to it every week now. We moved to Instagram for interviews, but apparently Facebook might be bringing them back now. So we'll see how that goes. But we try and do it on both mediums, and it's normally on at 8 o'clock in Eastern Standard Time.
No worries.
Before we go, Vic just wanted me to show you his
The Greek Mercedes.
just the Greek Mercedes here for all
Steel
your
rims.
for all the fans of
Steel rims, 235s, 970s, 136, man. Drive it home, mate. The old Marrickville Mercedes, mate.
That's crazy. That's
You're crazy. Man. Well, boys, thank you so much, and thanks for having us on. And we'll be giving a huge plug to your show on our show. That's for sure.
No worries, thank you. And also www.thejet275.com can buy all your merchandise. You have a big range of merchandise, I must say. You've done really well there. So, and someone's going to kick me up the butt as soon as this interview finishes to get on with some Talking Power merchandise. So, no, I've been there and had a look at that. So, head there for all your the Jet 275 and Operation Radial Freedom merchandise. Got some great stuff there.
Thanks,
Really
and,
appreciate it, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Send your sizes, and we'll send some T-shirts out for you, and maybe some for you guys to give away on your next show.
No worries.
Awesome.
No, we really
That's
appreciate that.
fantastic.
Cheers.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks
Vic.
for having us on.
No worries. Take care and
See
all the
you, boys.
best.
Catch up.
Ladies to the front.
That's it. No worries.
See you, boys.
See you, mate. Thank you.
Talk and Power, your motorsport and motoring radio show. Now on 88.5 FM, The Valley Comes Alive. And podcasting across iTunes and talkandpower.com.au.